I never thought I'd be the guy standing at his own wedding reception with divorce papers in his hands. But there I was, James Calloway, 36, successful architect with a downtown Chicago firm, frozen in disbelief as wedding cake frosting smeared the edges of what should have been our cake-cutting photo op. "What is this, Rebecca?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady as I stared at the document my new bride had somehow slipped between the cake server and my hand. Our 150 guests were watching, champagne flutes half raised, confused murmurs rippling through the lakeside venue. Rebecca's smile didn't falter. That's what haunts me most when I replay this moment. The calculated precision of it all. Her emerald dress perfectly tailored, her auburn hair swept up in an elegant twist, her makeup still flawless after the ceremony. Even now, as she was effectively ending our marriage at its beginning, she looked like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine. "Just a small adjustment to our arrangement, honey," she said, her voice sugar-sweet, but her eyes hard as polished stone. "Nothing major. Sign it, and let's get back to celebrating." We'd met 3 years ago at a charity gala for Chicago's Historical Architecture Preservation Society. I was there representing my firm. She was on the board of directors. Rebecca came from old money, the kind of wealth that has buildings named after your family. The Pearson Library downtown. That was her grandfather's legacy. The Pearson Wing at Northwestern Memorial. Her father's donation after her mother's successful cancer treatment. I'd grown up solidly middle class in Indiana. My parents were teachers who sacrificed to put me through architecture school. Every penny I had, I'd earned. And I'd done well for myself. A partner-track position. A penthouse condo overlooking Millennium Park. Investments that were finally starting to pay off. When Rebecca and I started dating, the wealth gap was obvious, but never seemed important. She appreciated my work ethic. I admired her philanthropy. Her family was surprisingly warm toward me, particularly her father, William, who seemed to enjoy having another self-made man around the dinner table to balance out the trust fund cousins. "We should protect ourselves," she'd said 6 months before the wedding, raising the topic of a prenuptial agreement. I agreed immediately. I had no illusions about marrying into her level of wealth, and I wanted to make it clear I wasn't after her money. The prenup we'd negotiated was straightforward. What we brought in, we kept. What we built together, we'd share. It had been reviewed by both our lawyers, signed and filed months ago. So what the hell was this document she was asking me to sign now? I skimmed it quickly, legal language jumping out at me in horrifying clarity. So, upon dissolution of marriage, all intellectual property, including but not limited to architectural designs, patents, and creative works, developed prior to or during the marriage, shall transfer ownership to Rebecca Pearson Calloway. My blood ran cold. My entire career, everything I'd built, every design I'd ever created or would create, she wanted ownership of all of it. I looked up from the paper to find her father watching from the head table, his expression unreadable, but eyes locked on mine. Next to him, Rebecca's cousin Jeffrey, a partner at the Pearson family's law firm, gave me a slight nod as if encouraging me to just sign already. That's when I realized this wasn't a spontaneous act. This was a coordinated ambush, timed for maximum pressure in front of everyone we knew. "You want my work?" I asked, my voice coming out stronger than I expected. "Everything I've created? Everything I will create?" Rebecca's smile tightened just slightly. "Your success has largely come from connections through my family, James. I'm just ensuring those advantages stay protected." The string quartet in the corner played on, oblivious to the drama unfolding. My best man Dave shifted uncomfortably beside me, while Rebecca's maid of honor Miranda, who I'd always suspected didn't like me, smirked into her champagne. I glanced around the room at the faces watching us, my parents looking confused and concerned, Rebecca's society friends with their curious stares, my colleagues from the firm, uncertain whether this was some kind of wedding game they didn't understand. "Let me read this aloud," I said, "just to make sure I understand exactly what you're asking me to sign on our wedding day." Rebecca's perfect smile faltered for the first time. "James, don't be dramatic. Just sign it and—" But I was already reading, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent reception hall. "Article 7, Section 3, I read, projecting my voice the way I did during client presentations. Upon dissolution of marriage, all intellectual property, including but not limited to architectural designs, patents, and creative works developed prior to or during the marriage, shall transfer ownership to Rebecca Pearson Calloway, including designs for the Lakefront Community Center, the Monroe Building renovation, and all future works. I paused, looking directly at my colleagues from the firm. The Lakefront Community Center that won our firm the Urban Development Award last year. My design. The Monroe Building Historical Preservation Project that's being featured in Architectural Digest next month. My work. Gasps rippled through the room as understanding dawned. These weren't just abstract legal terms. These were specific projects everyone in our professional circle recognized. Article 8, I continued, stipulates that all client relationships established during the marriage shall be considered marital property, with Rebecca Pearson Calloway retaining rights to maintain these relationships post-dissolution. My boss, Frank Nelson, stood up from his table, his face flushed with anger. He'd been a mentor to me for years, had championed my promotion to senior architect. He and his wife had given us a weekend at their lake house as a wedding gift. "You're trying to poach our firm's clients?" he asked Rebecca directly. Rebecca's composure cracked slightly. This wasn't going according to her script. "This is a private matter between my husband and me," she said, her voice tight. "James, stop this immediately." But I couldn't stop. Something inside me had broken open. Not just hurt at the betrayal, but a clarity I hadn't felt in months. Article 9, I read. In the event of dissolution, James Calloway waives all rights to contest any claims Rebecca Pearson Calloway may make regarding intellectual or creative development of projects, including claims of co-creation or primary authorship. This time, it was my father who reacted. Dad had always been quiet, reserved, letting Mom do most of the talking. But he stood now, the retired high school math teacher who'd taught me precision and integrity. "You want my son to sign away the right to even claim he created his own work?" he asked, his voice steady but disbelieving. Rebecca's father finally intervened, rising from his seat with the authority of a man used to controlling rooms. "This is hardly the venue for contract negotiations," William Pearson said smoothly. "Perhaps we should continue the celebration and address any concerns privately." But it was too late. The damage was done. Half the room was staring at Rebecca and her family with new eyes, while the other half seemed uncertain who to believe or what was really happening. My colleague Sophia, who'd worked alongside me on the Lakefront project, was already gathering her things, whispering urgently to her husband. My college roommate Drew, who'd flown in from Seattle for the wedding, was staring at Rebecca like he was seeing her for the first time. "James," Rebecca hissed, dropping all pretense of the happy bride. "You're embarrassing yourself. This is just business." "Trying to steal my life's work isn't business, Rebecca," I replied. "Why would you do this? Why wait until now, in front of everyone?" Her answer chilled me more than the document itself. "Because I never thought you'd actually read it before signing," she said, her voice low enough that only I could hear. "You never have before." Before I could process what that meant, William Pearson was at our side, damage control in full effect. "A terrible misunderstanding," he announced loudly. "An early draft that should never have been presented. Please, everyone, enjoy the celebration. The bar is open, and I believe it's time for the first dance." But people were already choosing sides. My parents stood frozen, looking to me for direction. Rebecca's mother looked mortified, while her younger sister seemed to be fighting back tears. The industry colleagues I'd invited were clustering together, smartphones out, no doubt texting those who weren't present. Dave, my best man, leaned in close. "What do you want to do, man?" he asked quietly. I looked at Rebecca, my wife of less than 3 hours, and felt nothing but a profound emptiness where love had been. "I think the marriage is over," I said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Don't be absurd," Rebecca snapped. "You're overreacting. This is just a standard protection clause." "There's nothing standard about trying to steal someone's career," came a voice from behind me. It was Catherine Nelson, my boss's wife, and a successful commercial litigation attorney. "And doing it like this, at your wedding? I've seen some underhanded contract maneuvers in my day, but this takes the cake." She paused, grimacing. No pun intended. That broke the tension slightly, a few nervous laughs rippling through the crowd. But the damage was irreparable. Guests were already gathering their things, the beautiful reception we'd planned disintegrating in real time. Rebecca's cousin Jeffrey appeared at her elbow, whispering urgently in her ear. Her face paled slightly before her mask of composure returned. "James," she said, her voice suddenly conciliatory, "let's discuss this privately. This is all a misunderstanding." But it wasn't. And looking into her eyes, I knew she knew it too. 6 months later, I sat in a different venue by the lake, a small bistro where Dave and I were meeting for lunch. Chicago's summer was in full swing, the water sparkling under the midday sun, sailboats dotting the horizon. "So it's final?" he asked, sliding into the chair across from me. I nodded. "As of yesterday. Shortest marriage in history." "Not even close," Dave laughed. "Kim Kardashian had you beat by a mile. And at least you got a hell of a story out of it." The annulment had been surprisingly straightforward once Rebecca realized how badly she'd miscalculated. The public nature of her attempted coup had backfired spectacularly. In architecture circles, which in Chicago meant in business circles generally, the story had spread like wildfire. The prenup rewrite had become a cautionary tale told at industry happy hours. "How's the new firm coming along?" Dave asked as our drinks arrived. That was the unexpected silver lining to this whole disaster. When the dust settled, Frank Nelson had approached me with a proposition. A new partnership. Breaking away from our old firm, taking our most loyal clients with us. Catherine had handled the legal aspects, ensuring everything was above board. "We're officially opening next month," I told him. "Nelson and Callaway Architectural Design. We've already secured the Westridge development contract and 2 historical renovation projects." "And the Lakefront Community Center expansion?" Dave asked. I couldn't help the smile that spread across my face. "Signed last week. Turns out the city planning committee wasn't thrilled about the idea of the original architect being pushed out." What Rebecca had never understood was that in creative fields, reputation and relationships matter more than legal maneuvering. By trying to claim ownership of my work so publicly, she'd inadvertently cemented my reputation as its true creator. "Heard anything about Rebecca?" Dave asked cautiously. I shook my head. "Not directly. Her father called once about a month after everything happened. Said he had no idea what she was planning." I shrugged. I believe him, actually. William always respected hard work. I think he was genuinely disappointed in her. What I didn't mention was the email I'd received from Rebecca's sister Charlotte last month, letting me know that Rebecca had taken an extended trip to Europe after the society gossip became too much to bear. According to Charlotte, several board positions had quietly asked for Rebecca's resignation. The Pearson name still carried weight, but Rebecca's personal stock had plummeted. "The irony," I said, "is that I would have given her anything she asked for directly. If she'd said she needed help, or wanted to be more involved in my work, or felt insecure about our future, we could have talked about it. But she went straight to deception." Dave nodded thoughtfully. "Some people don't know how to ask for what they need. They only know how to take." Our food arrived, and the conversation shifted to Dave's new promotion, his son's Little League team. Normal life continuing as it should. As we ate, I found myself mentally sketching the waterfront view, thinking about how I might capture the play of light on water in a new design. After lunch, I walked along the lakefront path, my mind clearer than it had been in years. The last 6 months had been challenging, but also clarifying. I'd learned who my real friends were, what I truly valued in my work, and perhaps most importantly, what kind of foundation I needed in a relationship. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia, now my lead designer at the new firm. Client loved the preliminary sketches. Green light to proceed with full concept development. I smiled, pocketing my phone and continuing my walk. The failed wedding had cost me nearly $30,000, countless sleepless nights, and a relationship I'd once believed would last a lifetime. But it had given me something more valuable, a clear understanding of my own worth, both professional and personal. It had shown me who stood by me when it mattered, and it had freed me from a partnership that had been built on shifting sand rather than solid ground. As an architect, I should have known better. No structure survives without a proper foundation. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Lisa, the historical preservation specialist I'd met during the Monroe building renovation. We'd been dancing around each other for weeks, professional interaction gradually giving way to longer conversations, shared interests, and finally, a dinner invitation I'd accepted for this evening. "Looking forward to tonight," her message read. "There's a new exhibit at the Art Institute I thought you might enjoy before dinner." I typed back a quick reply, a genuine smile on my face. I didn't know where this might lead, but I knew I'd be approaching it with clear eyes and honest expectations. Some might say I was moving on too quickly after my marriage implosion. But the truth was that marriage had been over the moment Rebecca slipped those papers into the cake cutting. Perhaps it had been doomed long before that, built on appearances rather than substance. As I reached the spot where the Lakefront Community Center stood, my design, my vision brought to life, I paused to appreciate both the building and the journey it represented. In architecture, as in life, sometimes you have to tear down to rebuild stronger. And this time, I'd be reading every clause before signing.